that Jenna girl survived rabies. Actually, I don't think anybody has ever survived rabies. Aside from the fact that there is no concrete proof that any of the survivors ever had rabies, our planet is actually haunted by an unknown number of unimaginable lyssaviruses. We just don't know because we're not looking. Lyssaviruses being the family of viruses that cause rabies and rabies-like diseases, some of which have a pretty good survival rate, like the Macola lyssavirus, while others will make your brain explode in the most horrible way possible with no chance of survival, like rabies lyssavirus or Australian bat lyssavirus. And before I start to sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist, let me tell you about two recent discoveries: frog rabies and lizard rabies. This is American tree frog lyssavirus, or frog lyssa-like virus, depending on the author. And this is the null lyssa-like virus. Look familiar? Yeah, this is rabies lyssavirus. And now, if y'all are anything like me, you might find yourself wondering, what does a rabbit tree frog look like? And unfortunately, we don't know, and that's kind of the scary part. We don't even know if these lyssa or lyssa-like viruses make them rabid in the traditional sense. Because while we know that the viruses exist, and scientists have been able to replicate them in labs, they've not been found in the wild. Because nobody's looking. These two new lyssaviruses were found completely by chance. Researchers were looking at public RNA sequencing data from various frogs and lizards, and they came across pieces of genetic material in the brains that looked mighty familiar. And obviously this was a shock because up until then we thought that lyssaviruses could really only affect warm-blooded animals. And I say warm-blooded animals because up until we found rabies in a chicken, we didn't think that rabies could occur naturally in birds. So we have two new cold-blooded rabies viruses. Now what? The next step, logically, was to figure out, can it infect mammals? And it can. And they were able to do this without having an actual living sample of the disease. Like, imagine you have a blank key, and we'll call that, like, lyssavirus. And then they take it to the machine at the grocery store and have it carve in either, like, the frog or the lizard virus. And then they expose the virus to various cells, like human cells, bat cells, mouse, various reptiles. And yeah, the viruses could infect those cells. But like I said, because we don't have a live sample of this virus, we have no idea what the symptoms look like, how it's transmitted, how it will interact within different animals. We know nothing. And because people aren't really thinking to go out and look for rabid frogs and lizards, and because there's not a whole lot of funding for lyssaviruses, we are likely going to continue to not know anything for a long while. Which goes back to my original point that I do not think that those people survived rabies, because there are so many different lyssaviruses. And even out of all of the ones that we do know about and have managed to capture live, we know that not all of them kill. So then add in all of the ones that we know about but haven't been able to get live samples of, and on top of that, all of the ones that we don't know about, because we're not looking. I don't think they had rabies lyssavirus.